Thank you all for joining us for the final Kaweah Subbasin Water Marketing Strategy meeting. Big round of applause to all of you for all of your hard work and dedication and collaboration over the last 2.5 years. I know some folks had some scheduling conflicts pop up at the last moment and won't be able to join us this evening. So I think we might be hitting critical mass and may see some folks file in over the course of the next 30 minutes or so, but we'll go ahead and get started. We'll start out with just a quick overview of the agenda. We'll have folks in the room introduce themselves, and then folks online introduce themselves and get a note of all who is here. Aaron Fukuda is going to provide us with an overview of the water marketing strategy process and also just give some updates on the Kaweah Subbasin as a whole. We'll jump into the comments that we received on the strategy document and plans for finalization, and then get into strategy committee reflections. So this is going to be a little bit more of an active meeting. We're going to be asking everybody who's been a part of the process to take a couple of minutes and share what their experience has been like throughout this process, what their expectations were going into it, and what their hopes are for the future of the market. So starting out with welcome and roll call, can folks in the room let us know who's there?
Maybe I'll go ahead and start off and then we'll go around the room. Aaron Fukuda, I'm the interim general manager of the Mid-kaweah and the general manager at Tulare ID. Hey,
Jacob.
right when you're eating.
I'm Frank Jacob. I'm a farmer in TID.
I'm Brandon Walker. I'm a farmer in TID.
My name is Diana Zagar, and I work for Tulare Irrigation District, Mid-kaweah GSA.
My name is Matthew Feenup, and I am part of the Stantec consulting team.
I'm Ron Clark. I'm a farmer at TID.
Jesse Sarge Malley, farmers in all the sub-basins.
Dr. Malley?
Dr. Malley, in the Kaweah Subbasin, I think that's the way I can summarize it. TID, Mid-kaweah, and Greater Kaweah.
Yeah, Justin Locke, farmer in Mid-kaweah.
Maybe we'll go online, start off with, I think Candriella introduced yourself, or do you want to start over?
Yeah, I'll start us off online. I'm Candrielle Clark. I'm a public affairs and funding specialist with Stantec, serving as the facilitator and supporting outreach as part of the water marketing strategy process. And I'll pass it off to Craig Wallace. Craig, can you hear us? If you can, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to get off of mute on my phone. This is Craig Wallace, General Manager, Lindsay Strathmore, and President of Wachumna Water Company.
Joey Arosa.
Joey Aroso, I'm a dairy farmer in the Kaweah Basin.
Eddie Ocampo.
Eddie Ocampo with Self Help Enterprises. I'm here primarily to support our lead in this effort, who is Sonia Sanchez. And with that, I'll pass it over to her. She's been most actively involved with this effort. Sonia?
Thanks, Eddie. Hi, everyone. I'm Sonia Sanchez with Self Help Enterprises, and I'm part of the advisory committee.
Joe Cardoza.
Off. I bet she accidentally hit the.
Joe, I see you've gone on off of mute, but we can't hear you. Why don't I jump to someone else and then jump back if we can get your audio situated. I see a Ken.
Hi, I'm Ken. I'm actually a student from Stanford. I'm interested in water management in Central Valley, just listening in.
Well, welcome. Matos.
It doesn't look like they're Mattis. I don't know which Mattis that is, but you're on mute.
Yeah.
Not. Maybe we ought to jump to. Did you get Joey? Yep. There we got Joey. How about Rooney? Jimmy,
Jimmy Vilov,
Yeah, Jimmy Velop. I'm a farmer in TID.
Natalie,
Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie. I'm a water policy coordinator with Leadership Council. I support our Sigma work.
I believe that's everyone we've got online. Well, welcome everybody. I'm going to pass it off to Aaron Fukuda for some opening words and some updates on the Kaweah Subbasin as a whole.
thanks everybody for coming to this meeting. Maybe I'll just go back and do just a real high level recap of where we came from, where we're at today, which is the last step in reality. 2019 Sigma, we were getting our groundwater sustainability plan finished up, and the group wanted a water market. The members wanted to put something together, but we didn't have anything structured. And the Bureau of Reclamation came out with a grant proposal to help fund development of a groundwater market. And so none of the sub-basin members had the time to put an application in. And TID had a new engineer at the time that said they would be willing to write up the application and put it in. And it was actually a long shot. We didn't actually think we would get it. Well, full circle, we get the notice of award and we're like, okay, shoot, now we got to go. And so that's 2019. We get awarded in 2020. We find ourselves right in the middle of COVID, but we want to put this water marketing strategy together. So we kind of got a little sidetracked there. We kind of put it on the back burner. But then we realized in 2020, really 2021, we needed to gear up, right? And so we established a groundwater marketing committee, which is an 11-member committee made up of members throughout the Kaweah Subbasin representing all different users of groundwater, disadvantaged communities, cities, agriculture, industrial, at large, just anybody that's going to use groundwater sits at the table. And those were selected by the GSAs to represent the users. Their task was to develop a water marketing strategy. And people have asked me, what is that? It's kind of like an instruction manual, operate a water market. And so it's a physical piece of paper that spells out how are you going to do it, when you're going to do it, that sort of thing, the rules around a water market. So we worked in earnest since 2021 with the committee and the public. What would happen is we would get the committee together, set up guiding principles, rules, look at existing markets. And then in late 2023, we got to a point where we had kind of a outline or a structure of a water market. And then we started drafting the document. In mid-2024, we realized, am I getting my years mixed up? I am, aren't I? In late 2023, we wanted to run a test market. And so we started a pilot market in the Mid-kaweah GSA, and we ran that pilot market in May and June of 2024. And those results came back, and it was exactly what we wanted it to be and needed it to be, which was a small test of the market to see a few transactions and how they would go and get feedback from the people that used it. And in large part, minus some improvements that they recommended we make, everybody felt it was easy to do. They can log on to their water dashboard, see how much they could transfer, go into and make an offer, or put it out there, and then a buyer put an offer in, and it would match those two people together. Once it was approved by the board, then simply the money goes through a transactional process and the water shows up on your water dashboard. So pretty simple. And the algorithm behind the scene matches the lowest with the highest, right? So the lowest offer for sale with the highest purchase, and you split the difference. So if somebody wants to sell water at $100 an acre foot and somebody wants to buy it at $200 an acre foot, what happens is you settle at 150 and split the difference. That way, the seller feels good because he or she got more than what they wanted, and the buyer feels good because they bought it for less than what they wanted for it. So everybody wins in that situation. So now that we've run that test pilot market, we've incorporated the comments that people have, we're going to finish off the document, the instruction manual, And then what happens at that point is each GSA that can consider adopting the rules and that water marketing strategy and implement it. That includes incorporation of the software into the water dashboard and all that kind of good stuff. So we're at the final steps of doing that document right now. And that's we put the document out there for comments. We got some comments back. We're going to go over those. So maybe I'll stop there really quick. That's the history of the water marketing. Are there any questions on that? We've been working on it for a while.
No limits on the geographical area on transfer.
Right now, because each GSA has to consider it, there are geographical restrictions. Number one, within your GSA, until everybody approves it, right? If they approve it. And then there are geographical restrictions based upon if there are impacts. So if you have an area that has a minimum threshold violation, right? Like you're at the lowest levels, you can't buy a credit and start pumping more because you're at the minimum threshold. So there's limits to that. So there could be a geographical. Right now there aren't any, right? Because our water levels are up. But in the future, you could run into a geographical. We also had disadvantaged community protection buffers around small communities. So if we start to see groundwater levels decline and put their community wells at risk, then we have to stop transferring pumping credits in. Now you can transfer a pumping credit out, away, but you can't bring one in that way. So there are, but currently there are not.
So to follow the guidelines for intra GSA transfers, not between different GSAs.
We envision, right? We get the strategy done, East, Mid, and Greater adopt the strategy, and then automatically you enter the market, and assuming there are no minimum thresholds, you're just gonna start pressing boundaries.
So important on this idea. Since it's involving maybe a host required, but not everyone, including me, is savvy to get onto the dashboard to make all of the transfers. What if, because it's a Kaweah Subbasin, like I've had discussions with you before, you can't put a Berlin wall here and see water level here. Now, when Kaweah cannot, it's not possible over in Kaweah, which I've discussed my situation, time and again, but I'm putting one right in the middle. Not back on Kaweah.
You're split by it.
Sorry, by that. I have all the recharging basins all around me, for groundwater which we're doing. What if in this marketplace, understood with all the limitations within each GSA, it's different how much you can pull up. But if there was a centralized place, market you could go and say, for example, I'm in Greater Kaweah right now, and all of this was being pulled into Greater, Mid, anyone. I need to purchase this many credits. So I call in and I tell, I need to get this much. And that person there should be able to tell me that this is available. This is how much it's going to cost you to purchase it. These are the restrictions after this many years or whatever it is. It simplifies that fashion. I think it makes it a lot easier because whoever is maybe in East Kaweah granted, it's an overdrawn area, but at least there's a central area.
Like a hub. Yeah,
as a hub.
That's interesting. It's really the vision, but I've actually heard more the opposite of that. Versus, I want to be able to get on my phone and do it. I just want to be able to either buy or sell for my own accounts, right? And so that's what our system our system was going to allow that. You as a buyer, what you're going to do is it is the hub. If you were to go on the system right now and you want 100 acre feet, you go in, you just pull up your phone, and we could do it for you. If you came in, Diana did it for people. You just come in and she'll do it for you. You just say, Dr. Malley, I need 100 acre feet on this parcel. It's literally as simple as pick the APN. I want 100 acre feet. Buy, and it goes out and finds. Frank may have 100 acre feet for sale, and you won't even know each other, but it'll just automatically do it. You want to buy it, It's $100 an acre foot. You buy 100, and you write him a check and it transfers.
Because where I'm going with this thing is this. I have to just get on my vehicle and drive from here all the way to Portobello, go to Picton, where I see water, watches, all I see is dirt. I mean, grounds are being, everything is being pulled out, left, right, and center.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot of this open ground which is sitting out there where there's no way, the thing very strict. The only way one can be sustainable is to be able to get its water credits to stay in existence,
Move around. Yep.
move it around. Other than that, if we have variants of that thing, man.
Yeah, trust me, we are very conscientious of that, and that I think if you and some people have the benefit of following this committee as they moved along. That is one of the principles, is to kind of remove the barriers to allow flexibility, right? That was one of the guideposts. But you can't remove the barriers such that, okay, all of a sudden, like for instance, an extreme could happen. Like Dr. Malley, you go, okay, I want to buy a whole bunch of pumping credits. You end up accumulating a ton of water credits, right? And then you start pumping, and then all of a sudden now you have a cone, what they call a cone of depression under your property, right? So this system, the way it's designed, buffers all of that. It tries to take a sense of what's happening. It would prevent some of those things from happening, especially up against a small disadvantaged community well, or in an area that already has lower groundwater levels. So this committee also identified that originally, when people promoted water markets, the idea was groundwater dependent or white areas would be benefiting from a water market. This committee identified that that cannot happen, because if you're moving pumping into an area that already doesn't have any surface water, you're actually going to compound the problem and make it worse, right? So most of this is a very deliberate movement of water to help people out that have a very small shortfall. But if you want to go from no water all the way to all of a sudden having enough water to farm, I don't think that's not what this market is for. If you're 3 inches short across your field, 6 inches short here and there, that's what I think this market buffers.
So, and to address, I think what your central concern was, is the vision was to create a formal centralized place where you'll learn how much does water cost.
Yep.
And this is where if you're a potential buyer, this is where the sellers are that are offering their water to sale. And it's a simple platform connected to the water dashboard. You log in, and that information is available to you.
Because what you are saying, in itself, it will become self-prohibitive. If you're saying that you think you're going to go crazy and pump this thing out, if you're in an area, if you're in the East Korea area, which is really struggling, there's just no way that the self-limiting thing out of this is that if your income from that 1 acre is $3,000, let's just say for example, and you are going to spend water $5,000, you're crazy. You lost your beans.
Yeah, yeah.
You see, so in itself is going to be restrictive. You see, it's going to put its limits. That's it.
Well, in our pilot market, that's what we found. The average price was probably not indicative of, if you were to pay that price to pick up, above the 10 inches to get to a 3 acre foot per acre. It isn't going to. There's no commodity to support that. Okay. So a lot of this discussion has been happening, and if you trace, like folks Sonia and Craig Wallace and folks that were, and Natalie, I think, joined a lot of our conversations. For 3 years, we went through all these kind of iterations of making sure that this is something that growers can use, that will solve problems and not create more problems, and be simple and elegant in that, you don't have to go do a whole bunch of work in order to buy or sell. I think the average time we were looking at when we did the pilot was somewhere around, was it like 15 minutes or something? It takes, yeah, you can do it while you're sitting here eating a taco. We made it that simple. So I encourage everybody, when we get it approved, and that's what a lot of people did in the pilot market. Somebody put an acre foot up just to see what just to see what happened. So we're now at a stage where we're ready to deliver a document to the GSAs and they can implement it. I do believe that the Mid-kaweah, we're going to take it to the Mid-kaweah and we'll probably have it up and running early next year. The East and the Greater Kaweah are still trying to, figure out some ground rules on their allocations and other things. So it might be a little bit long. However, like Dr. Malley, we are talking with the Greater Kaweah about in the interim, when you get stuck in like your situation, we need to help solve that. So we're just going to do a paper transfer. Like just tell us what, but we're going to follow the same rules. We'll just tell us on paper what you need to move around within, say, your own accounts and stuff. So you can get it across the lines, right? Because you're right, it makes no sense. I have this field here and that field there. There's no boundary. There's nothing but a creek there. So that all that being said, on top of that, I wanted to give everybody's on the phone. I here at Zoom and here in person. So I want to thank you for participating. The other thing I wanted to give you is an update on where we're at, right? As the GSAs are concerned, right? So many of you may have gotten the notice, but the GSAs have spent the last 2 years basically rewriting our groundwater sustainability plan. We were deemed incomplete and inadequate, which is basically DWR saying your plan doesn't work. We evaluated that 2 years ago. Question was, should we go into our old GSP and maybe move some sentences around and, tell a little bit different story, and maybe that'll work. Well, what that key decision we made about 2 years ago probably saved us. So that decision was no. The direction is go light that 2020 plan on fire and start over. Because sometimes you get into something and you go so far in the wrong direction, it's harder to rewrite that than it is to just start over. That gave us two opportunities. It gave us an opportunity to go back and have another conversation with all the growers and the homeowners and the disadvantaged communities about what is important and what's significant and unreasonable. So we spent the last 2 years rewriting that GSP and trying to work this out with the State Water Resources Control Board. We recognize that with the state board and others, there's probably processes that people don't like. What we came to the realization is we all don't like this process, but if we're committed to getting it right, then we can sit at the table and work with each other. And that's what we did with the state board. We sat at the table with them. We explained what we were doing at every step, and we delivered them what we were doing at every step. So what happened was we delivered them multiple drafts of our report, and on November 13th, we approved the final revised GSP. We call it the second amended GSP on November 13th. We uploaded that GSP this year. Yep. 30 days ago. We uploaded that document to the State Water Resources Control Board on November 14th. And then we had a probation hearing just like these other subbasins scheduled for January 7th. And on the evening of November 14th, the state board staff called us and said, we need a meeting with you immediately on November 15th. And the three GSAs were scared. What? We just uploaded it. What went wrong? We couldn't figure out. We're calling each other. What happened? Why do they want to talk to us? So we got on the phone on the 15th, and the news from them is, hey, Kaweah Subbasin GSAs, you've been working with us all along. We've been doing this review process. We looked at everything you've done, and we've done what they call a red flag review, which is, are there anything that present like a red flag that would mean something's wrong? And they said, we've done the red flag review on your draft, and now that you finalize it, unless there's anything significantly different, there's no red flags. And you walked us through. We're canceling the January 7th hearing. And to be honest, we were so confused, we just kind of said, okay. Well. And then in 30 seconds, it dawned on us, oh, does this mean you guys aren't considering us for probation? And the state board's like, yeah, it didn't dawn on you. And we're like, well, no, because we didn't even know what that was even a possibility. And they said, yeah, we've done our due diligence, and we don't believe that you guys would be considered for probation. So we dodged what I call a $20 million bullet, because that's what I think our cost exposure was in the Kaweah Subbasin. So now we have this space and energy now to do things like a water market, right? And to allow growers that room to start doing this sustainability stuff. It's like I told the state board, it's actually, exciting for us to actually show you now, because the funny part is they say it all the time. You want a water market? We got it. You want a water allocation? We got it. You want a well mitigation plan? We have it. So we've done all the things that we did it without them telling us we had to do it, but we thought it was the right thing to do anyway as a group. So that's why I think we've gotten to success here. So I wanted to give folks online and folks here in the room an update that we feel there's a slight chance they're still reviewing our final GSP. Say they actually did find a little mistake in the updating of it. There was a mistake in one of the GSPs, but it was just a mistake that we have to literally go back in, and they need to copy it out of ours, which had it right, and put it in theirs. And so they're finding stuff like that, but they don't think there's any fatal flaws. So by the summer of next year, we would be back in with Department of Water Resources at that point and out of probation. So at that point, we just keep the ball rolling. This water market comes out, and we just keep working with you to try and manage this the best way. And Dr. Malley, you're right. Our goal is to minimize the amount of ground we have to take out of production, but that's counterbalanced against a bunch of things, including Mother Nature cooperating with us, right?
Congratulations, man. I would have gone and got drunk.
I know. So somebody asked.
That's probationary now. What you say next summer you're expecting the DWR to approve the GSP?
Well, no,
once
we
they've
have a
gone
whole
through their
nother
red
process.
lines?
We have a whole nother process with them.
Okay.
What ultimately, like I said, what we did is this just dodged a $20 million bullet. And what everybody, what that is we had fees we were going to have to pay, right?
Right.
And so instead of the fees being spent here locally on things like our projects, our management actions and things like that, the money would have gone to Sacramento. And it's about double what our TID ratepayers are paying right now.
I mean, and then not including all groundwater extraction that they're dumping on Thule right now and everything else, right? I mean, is that still going to be levied
On Thule?
No, on Kaweah.
No. So that's what we avoided.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That without going into probation, we will not see those fees.
Yeah.
So that's a background into the water marketing strategy update where we're at. I can't thank you folks enough. I know your patience level, because this isn't just you're talking to me about water, but you guys have carb compliance. You guys have DPR compliance. So I know that it feels like 1,000 paper cuts, but this one, you've got a good team here. We're spending the time, energy, and money we feel in the most efficient and effective manner to get you folks to success. That's what we're after. So that's my message for today. Are there any questions or comments or thoughts?
So you were saying if you have water to sell and you put it on a dashboard, somebody has water they want to buy. They're willing to pay 100, the price is 200, so you split it. Is the number that's for sale is what they want for it? Is it out there for them to see? Like maybe I want to buy water for 100, but this guy wants 200. So I don't know if I want to do that.
You would have, so what we intend to do is you would see the prior markets transactions. You will not see the live transactions.
So it's a
blind
sealed.
It's like a sealed field.
Yeah. But you get to see every transaction that's happened to date and what the price was, what the quantity. Yeah.
So what happened was we ran two market transfers earlier this year. So the first one was a true blind, uninformed auction. And you could tell that right out of that one, pricing was set on the second one. And they used that to inform on the second one.
And as soon as one happens, that goes out, so that number's out there.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Every transaction.
And what safety measures are there to prevent outside entity from coming in and purchasing big block? Great question.
Number one, you have to be in the water dashboard.
Okay, so you can set up an account still, anybody can, right?
You have to have land so you have to own a parcel in the district. And then again, this committee saw that issue, and so there is a limit on the amount. So right now it's 10 inches across your property. If you had 10
In a given transaction or across calendar year?
that was
Calendar year.
calendar year.
Water year.
Water
In a water year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you had, 1,000 acres, you're going to get 83 or 83 acre feet of transfer. Oh no, if you had 100.
Yeah, 1,000 to 800.
800, 800 of available transfer capacity. If you have it, if you pumped it and used it because the system all automatically, because it's integrated with the water dashboard, knows that you're using, right? So you actually have to have the credit. So it recognizes what you're using and will calculate whether or not you have it or not.
It won't let you offer water you've already pumped.
And the credit that you have bought is only valid for that water year.
No, it can be carried over.
And there's the rate, because the rate is dictated by the marketplace. But it can be carried over. Will the rate change when it's carried over because now you're depleted?
So
that will change.
Some of
That's
these
for 3 years or something like that, or how does that work?
No, once you pay it, it's yours. It goes into the groundwater credit bucket on your water dashboard, so it's there. And that's where the Greater Kaweah and the East Kaweah are working out the rules, because they have rules on leave behind. In the Mid-kaweah, we don't have rules on leave behind. So once it goes into your groundwater recharge credit bucket, it just stays there until you use it. Now remember, say you put it in the bucket this year, right? And you roll into next year. We have a way to apply the credits. So your first credits off the water dashboard, right, are the credits that you have for the prior. So we take that off first anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't the Mid-kaweah Advisory Committee was very conscientious about leave behinds, and they complicate things. For right now, the compromise to less flexibility in the Mid-kaweah, because we apply an algorithm to how you use your water. You don't choose. In the Greater and the East, you can choose, well, I want this to use first, and I want that to use second, and I want that to use fourth. And it's this combination of things. In the Mid-kaweah, it is a prescribed reduction. So we don't allow you that flexibility, but the flexibility you gain from no leave behind balances that out right now. Because we're learning. Now, our Mid-kaweah Advisory Committee is evaluating the way our overall allocation process is going, and are we seeing the right trends? And we are. So last year, with an average year, you would anticipate in an average year, our groundwater levels would drop anywhere between 10 and 12 feet. We dropped 2. So we know we're moving in the right direction. Right? So in an average year, we can stabilize our groundwater levels, all things being pretty stabilized. We know we're headed in the right direction. So these rules will probably have a little bit of longevity. If we start to see trends that are not right, we might have to tweak some of the edges to try and fix that. But for right now, Dr. Malley, you buy it, goes into your groundwater recharge credit bucket, and then the first water you use the following year comes right out of that bucket.
Thank you.
We've talked about the whole bucket thing before, right? And you had an idea, but do you guys have a set number now on carryover and leave behind, and what we're going to be able to keep? Or we start losing a percentage of it, or
we started to have that discussion, and then we got into GSP revisions. The advisory committee just didn't have the capacity to focus in on that. And right now, everything's running really nicely. So
as far as right now, there's nothing.
Yeah, trust me, we've got so many things on our plate right now. Like, this is that one's working. So I don't want to tinker with it if it's working. So I tend to want to tinker with things that aren't working. But that one is working. Otherwise, we take the flexibility away from growers. And it's a balance, right? Like in the water marketing strategy, we have to apply flexibility, but you can't have it in certain areas. Like if you're wanting to move pumping towards an area with a minimum threshold, you can't do that. So that flexibility gets taken away.
So you guys are okay with, in certain scenarios on if the water's staying in the same field on the same APNs, and we're in a scenario where we've got some baby trees, right? We're not pulling full ET, but we're in the years where we have water, we're buying and seeing kind of water, right? So that's going to be safe 4 years from now.
That's the rule right now. I will come and tell everybody if for some reason the advisor
It's
became.
not going to be an overnight deal. Where
No, we're not. Yeah, that's not the way we operate. It's going to be like several meetings where we had to talk this thing through. And what he's talking about is the advisory committee brought up the fact that there could be a concern if you were to hoard water credits and build up this big bubble that's physically not there, right? So just to say I don't farm a piece of ground and I just start building credits, water, the way water moves is it won't stay there, it's going to go away. So accumulating a unlimited bucket isn't realistic. It physically doesn't manifest that way. But we don't see anybody in our basin doing that right now. We know that everybody's actively putting and taking. There's a dynamic that's happening. No one's doing the hoarding right now. So again, that's why I think it's gonna work for us.
And like we talked about, I mean, it incentivizes people on wet
Water
years
to the
to
ground.
tank water.
Yep.
So that should we hit a 5-year drought,
Yep.
you've got a little leeway there, right?
Yep.
If you plan ahead. I mean, otherwise it's kind of scary to spend money on water that could be gone and start losing percentages on year over year.
The only issue is if you hoard, if physically the groundwater levels can't support that.
Yeah.
Right. So I built up 5 years worth of credit, but when we really go look at the levels, it's not there. We tend to be okay with that, but as you move towards the east, when you don't have the aquifer and it pinches out, that's why they have those rules. It's just not there, and you can't have the carryover. There's no storage there. In our area, we've got this big storage bucket underneath this. So you've got abilities to push and pull, and you got time on your side. So even if you were to extract, and then we could say, oh, hey, you got a problem. You could still have credits theoretically in your emergency, in your water dashboard, but we may talk to you about, hey, you have credits, but it's the water's not there. Well, in order for us to give you those credits back, we're gonna have to put some water in the ground quick first. So again, everybody in the Mid-kaweah, what we've seen in the last 3 years at least is we're watching all of the water we're using very closely, and we're increasing how much we're putting in the ground, so that those two management knobs have yielded us groundwater increases, right? If you watch what you use and you put more in, you're obviously going to see the trend start turning up instead of down. Because typically what would have happened after 2023, if all things were equal, we would have, like I said, my estimation, if we would have even gone to an average year, it would have been 10 foot of drop, would have gone down 10 feet. So, but if you saw last year, even when you drove around, you're seeing a little change in the kind of dynamic that's happening out there. There's it's not wall to wall double crop, so there's some thinking behind being very careful about that. And then you just see everybody doing everything they can not to use the well if at all possible, right?
So that sounds good, but how do you explain that to people who have permanent plantings? Because on a rotational basis, you have more room to hedge and play and plan. But if you're throwing plantings in, even in a 5-year drought period, where TIDs, reconveyances, and movements are still going to limit you potentially at year 4 and 5. What do you do? Not water?
So two things. If you're a permanent crop and you're not, and you're 3 inches short, right? You're going to go into the water market, and you're going to be the buyer, and the seller is going to be the farmer that has been maybe open row crop. Can I use you as an example? Right? You may make part of your operation a water banking operation, and you may want it, and you can grow on that, and you can put water in the ground without having damage. And so here's how that operates. So you leave that, you depress a field, and you say you don't know if it's gonna be wet or dry. So it's ready to go at all times. Even if you put a crop in there, say you put wheat in there and it turns wet, forget the wheat. I'm gonna go flood that sucker and keep it wet. and I'm going to build credits. So then you go into the market, you're going to sell, you're going to buy, and you're going to sell when it's dry because that's when the market's going to go up, right? Or you might do it along the way. Or what you're going to do is if you're a permanent crop and you're an annual crop, you're going to go, hey, Frank, listen, I need to buy down, I need more surface water. I'm going to lease that. If you don't need to farm that, I'm going to lease it and I need your TID allocation, right? So don't farm that 40 acres, but I need that 40 acres of TID allocation over on my oranges over there. And then you sign a lease and then you call Marco and say, his allocation's coming to me. And we just bump your allocation. And in that lease, you could also say, well, I want your groundwater allocation for that year. And then we would have to look, that's a paper trade. We'd have to make sure it fits. Because you guys are close, but you're separated by a highway and a mile or two. But actually, you guys are the prime example of where it could work. Because you're an upstream, downstream condition. So that's how that looks.
Is that 10 inches? That you're talking about, on the water you're for being able to sell, is that, you're talking about for keeping.
Right now, again, the 10 inches
coming in.
The 10 inches works.
Yeah. So that's not,
but it's not fixed
flexible
forever. Yeah. I think over time we start evaluating you.
The whole idea is that this will be evaluated and updated over time. Sure. And the 10 inches also came out of the different buckets, and the 10 inches is what everybody has, whether you have access to groundwater.
And everybody that did the pilot market said the 10 inches was way more than what everybody had anyway. So yeah.
And is this gonna be like a permanently open thing, or is you gonna have, like you've been doing certain, May, June, we're gonna do a run and sell, and then like twice a year deal, or is it gonna be permanently sell by?
So the vision was that you'd have a few auctions at the beginning of the water year. You'd have a few auctions at the end of the water year, and then we have true up auction 2 months where you can go back and, I need a little bit of water.
The middle of the year was kind of dangerous in that you're actively farming and we'd have to true that all up if you accidentally put more into the market and then you went pump out too.
And where we've done this before, the markets are just inactive in the summer. There's nobody.
Yeah. When we talked to the growers that even did it, we were like, would you even do this in the middle of the pilot? And they're like, no, I just need it at the end when I look at my account and I'm short, or I'm at the beginning of the year and I know I'm going to be short. I'll just predetermine it. And then usually that's when we're also knowing when it's going to be a wet or dry year.
Hey, did you resell water purchased in the market?
I
use it.
Less than 10 inches.
10 inches.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could buy it
treated just like
you could buy it at the beginning of the year.
some people can really speculate on the price of water.
Not really, because we're talking about 10 inches.
But
But that would assume that you theoretically bought it and then didn't use it. Now remember, if you bought it at the beginning of the year, then you farmed, we take that 10 inches off first.
Yeah.
So you would actually just be reselling your
other
allocation.
Yeah.
But it's treated the same.
It is
up to 10 inches.
No hoarding of a dog.
Don't worry. Sorry, folks online. I know you're probably listening and watching. Is there anything you guys have? And we will. Okay.
I don't see any hands up or comments.
These are great questions and feedback. So I'm hearing what I heard from you, Dr. Malley, is make it centralized, easy. That's one of the
That's cool.
Yeah. And Jesse, you're saying, okay, how do we balance out permanent versus annual and then in a drought? And that's what all of our programs are meant to do. Provide you a drought. You'll have multiple alternatives to balance your permanent crop.
And so the market is one of those tools.
Yep. But again, that the market is not meant to be like I'm going to buy my way into farming. If you're going to do that, you don't belong in farming. I tell most lay people what this means is we've gone through it, or even our growth. Remember when we were in the back in the drought 20 2012, 13, and 14. A grower's well goes dry. They immediately go to the neighbor and go, "Hey, my well went dry," and that neighbor goes, "Okay, I got. Let's tap into my well and let's share the well and let's I'll help you out and but you just help me out and pay a little bit." That's what it's like. You're not coming in saying, "I'm going to steal. I need all your water." It's like, I just need a little bit to help me out. You're just going to help your neighbor out.
I definitely like that someone can't come in. That was a great question you had. You said that they have to own land, right?
Theoretically, somebody can come in and own land, right? They can come in and buy 100 acres and think. And again, the committee saw this and they said, okay, well, that's why you can own land, but you can only do 10 inches. So what venture capitalist is going to come in and spend that much money on 100 acres to only be able to trade 10 inches? And I'm going to tell you right now, there were a ton of venture capitalists banging at my door when we got the grant, and they're no longer around. So I'm glad the committee saw through that, because they were speculating on buying ground and hoarding the water. That was their goal.
Yeah.
And then they would capitalize on you when you need it most. Oh, you need water now? Okay, it's $1,000 an acre foot.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Not today's prices.
Yeah.
That's been my greatest fear all along. Was that?
That's okay.
Yeah, I just like to make a comment, and I think with the marketing committee, we were very, very fortunate to have Stantec, who's done all of the work in Ventura, to help us through that and to be able to see some of those pitfalls that we could fall into. And I think that one of the things that I see from the GSAs I sit in is we do have a water issue. The wells are getting deeper and deeper, and it makes it really hard for communities to get water. And trying to balance all that out on how much we can continue pumping and not address the long-term problem, and yet do that glide scale so that we don't force anybody out immediately, and to provide this option of marketing. It's not easy. And the people on that committee really busted themselves trying to come up with the right things, thanks to Stantec. It's not easy because we're all interested in what's important to us.
Actually, so the Ventura was done by Matthew Feinup, and I don't think Stantec was on that. They're on Stantec.
Oh, Matthew was there. Sorry.
And it's a combination, and ours is a combination of Stantec and Matthew Feinup. And Matthew's an environmental economist, and he's done these markets. And I remember the day one is Matthew, we understand, but the Kaweah Subbasin is not the Ventura, and Matthew's always kept that. We're not all lemons and oranges and avocados. We're corn and black eyed peas, and although we have some oranges, right? The other thing I wanted to tell people, what I discovered out of all of this was, okay, we have a tempered market. It's going to help everybody out. We're going to move water. But on the flip side, when we did the pilot market and talking with people, as a grower, folks were in there going, a different concept of this is I have some credits and I know I'm going to need them for the drought. But my tractor, had a transmission issue this year, and I got to get that fixed, or else I can't farm next year. So I'm going to move a little bit of water into the market, and now I have my transmission taken care of. So there's going to be that flexibility built into this too, right? So we know that the ag economy is taking a hit because land is coming out of production. And we need in our communities dollars to keep moving, right? So everybody knows a community that loses an economy dries up and dies, right? And in our agricultural communities, it's not like we have a burgeoning, like I tell people, there's not a Google campus here, right? It's farming and the farmers that go out and buy the trucks, the tractors, all the implements and all that. So that money flows through the economy, and you pay laborers that go out there and work and they go eat at restaurants. Have to keep that money moving at the same time. So our water market kind of envisions that, keeping the money moving in the economy a little bit locally. It could stagnate pretty quick. If you lose, a couple thousand acres, it could stagnate. And the two biggest employers in the county are ag and government, right? And government is only supported by the people, which is ag. So I would look at it kind of ag and ag. Yeah. So, well, with that, we have actually stuff to cover. Uh, is comments. So can we go through those? Kendra, I think that's what we're going to go through next, right?
Yes,
And you're going to cover those, or
that would be me.
okay, go for it.
Awesome. So as folks on the call may know, we did do a draft version of the strategy document. You may have seen emails come through from the Mid-kaweah email list. We held a public comment period on that draft document. We opened it mid-October to early November, so a little less than 30 days, but we did receive a total of 5 comment letters during that period. We received 2 letters from just general members of the public, as well as a joint letter from Community Water Center, Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability, and Clean Water Action that was jointly signed, a letter from Self-Help Enterprises, and a letter from Tulare Irrigation District staff. We additionally received reviews and comments from Stantec staff as well. We took all of those letters and reviewed them for comments and broke them down into approximately 33 individual unique comments that we classified as either editorial or substantive. And what that means is comments that reflected on the structure of the document, or how things were defined, or any grammatical changes that they saw fit. We classified those as editorial, and substantive comments were those we listed as ones that pertain to the actual structure of the market, or the data used to support the market, or any of the decision making involved in the process. We took those comments with that organization and those labels and put them into a comment log. As you'll see, there's a screenshot here that just shows what it looks like in the spreadsheet, just each individual comment from each letter broken down, where it pertains to in the document, and then further off to the side will be how that comment was responded to, either as far as a direct response as a thank you for this comment. We'll digest this as part of the decision-making and management process for the market going forward, or a direct change in the document, such as an editorial comment. That spreadsheet, along with copies of each of the comments we received, will be included in the final document as an appendix towards the end for folks who'd like to see what the community was thinking during that public comment period. So just a high-level breakdown of the feedback that we pulled from those comments. Some positive aspects of the document that were noted were the guiding principles as one of 3, which included flexibility, adaptability, transparency, do no harm, equity and inclusion, and one Kaweah Subbasin market strategy. I did not let you know ahead of time, but Matthew, for the folks in the room, it sounds like there's a number of folks who may not be very closely familiar with those guiding principles. So either you or Aaron, would you be willing to give just a very quick Delta Airlines overview of what those guiding principles are and how they feed into the structure of the market?
It's more important to talk about the role that the guiding principles played. So in terms of our, from the very beginning, we recognize that Kaweah Subbasin is not only not like Ventura County, it's unique. It's a unique subbasin all by itself, right? And so our goal was to learn everything that's being done somewhere else, to sort of create a menu of options, what a market might look like, what structures, what rules are being used. We didn't want to invent anything new. Let's just do what's already being done somewhere else. So we surveyed existing markets. And then once that menu was assembled, the question is, how do we make choices? What aspects of other markets to pull in? And so we set about defining these guiding principles. We're going to help us choose what the market looks like. And so the chart is simple questions. What do we want to accomplish with the market? And then what do we want to avoid? And so we did several rounds of answering those questions, discussing and debating. And then we settled on, and the group unanimously adopted a set of guiding principles. You see the words here, and the definitions are clearly laid out in the document. Flexibility, meaning the whole purpose of this is to give water users greater flexibility in the face of uncertain water supplies, adaptability, that we were going to start simple and learn that we understood this has never been attempted in the Kaweah Subbasin before. We're going to have to start simple and create a process so that we're learning, and this strategy is changing over time in response to new information as it becomes available. Transparency, do no harm, equity and inclusion, these are addressed around making sure we have a way of discovering unintended consequences, especially impacts to third parties, to people who aren't in the market, and a strategy to then respond to those unintended consequences as they're discovered. And then lastly, the Kaweah Subbasin, the idea was to design one strategy that would work in each of the GSAs, so that then the GSAs could all consider a similar strategy for adoption, with the notion that if they all adopt one strategy, it's much easier to integrate transfers sub-basin wide between GSAs.
So to give you an example of how, so we set up these guiding principles, and this was like day one, and so give you a little bit of flavor of how much work this committee did. This was right when Sigma was, right when COVID was kind of opening back up, and we held it out in the shop on a late spring day, and kind of 6-foot separation. We're sitting in the shop. I think we started the meeting around 1 o'clock, and we needed to establish these guiding principles. And you have 11 people with differing viewpoints on a water market, which is contentious. And there we have committee, all of our committee members are online, but there was tension. It was
also 89 degrees.
It was also 89 degrees.
The swamp cooler wasn't helping much.
And we were at an impasse, right? And but we broke, and then we came back together, and within an hour or two of that, the principle came out, and so quickly could they elegantly be applied. As give an example, transparency. So you asked the question, can we see the transactions? How are we going to know what the pricing is? There were people that said, no way are you going to put our information out there. But if you apply the transparency rule that everybody agreed upon, you have to have data, and you have to put it out there for people to see in order to make decisions. And finally, everybody saw, okay, there's a way to do this without putting your name on it. So what happens is the transactions are shown as a summary. We don't know if, Ronnie, you put it in, or, we don't know that. We just know that 5 acre-feet transacted for this price. And that gives you enough information. So that's how we applied the guiding principles, was we need transparency. So we have to provide that. How are we going to do that?
And this was the hard work. So that once we chose the guiding principle,
it went smooth.
Then boom, the market, it was very clear which element from different markets and other places to pick.
The do no harm is, I think, one of the key elements statewide that people are not paying attention to, and that's why markets do create problems. Is you can't have a market that create the problem. I know you're trying to provide flexibility, but you can't provide flexibility that then goes and harms somebody, right? That just counterbalance, just trading problems all over the place.
Can you give me one example?
So that was the issue. If you have an area with a depressed water level that's near the minimum threshold, or we're not supposed to be, and that person buys a water credit, the groundwater credit, says, well, I bought a credit, I'm going to pump more, and you're already at the bottom. You don't want that to happen. And that's where it kind of came to everybody's realization that literally statewide people were promoting water markets as a way to solve the groundwater dependent or white area problem. We actually discovered that it doesn't solve the water problem for them. It may solve a financial problem, because they can sell a credit out, they're 10 inches, but they can't buy 10 inches.
Because it's not there.
Because it's not there. Yep.
So there's both a minimum threshold and a disadvantaged community, a shallow municipal well trigger. There's 2 triggers that came out of that do no harm principle.
So that's based specifically on where the water is.
The levels change.
In representative monitoring wells, yeah.
So the system's automated. It says, okay, you're in zone 5, right? And you want to buy a water credit. It says, okay, you are, for some reason, and we hit a drought and your zone 5 got the minimum threshold. Frank, I'm sorry, it'll tell you you don't have water you can't be a buyer, but you could sell 10 inches. And you would have to sell it to an area that actually has water available, right? So
Yeah, and actually you can buy from other people in zone 5.
but you can't.
So you can trade with your near neighbor, but you can't bring extra net pumping into that zone. But you can sell it out of the zone, right? We can reduce the total amount of pumping in that zone through the market transfer. So it's a directional restriction.
And then if you're near a disadvantaged community like Okieville, and we're looking at that level compared to where their well is at, we know their well. I mean, realistically, we can't dry up a community well because you're going to put 100 homes out of water, right? So we'd have to can't trade into that zone.
So that's a great example. So what happened? So if the water, so do we need to maintain that water level? Because we all know, I mean, we know that wells break and go bad structurally. So their well goes bad because structurally it didn't hold, but the water's still at the same.
Yeah, you're okay.
We're not responsible for that.
Yeah, no. If the well breaks, personally, that happened to me. I had to go re-drill my well last year, and they're like, "How ironic that Aaron has to go drill a new well at home." Well, my casing broke, right? But I had plenty of water in the well. That's not a Sigma related issue. That's a infrastructure, age, bad metal.
Okay.
We're having that issue right now in our office well right here. We had 11 breaks in it. So.
And we also allow reevaluation of that twice a year. There's a fall rating and a spring reading. And if conditions improve, we can lift those restrictions middle of the water year.
I have a question to you earlier. I asked it. So, like the bucket, like you was mentioning, and I'm still not sure what this is. Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay. So we go. Right now, we don't have. Right now, we go 3-4 years and hang on to that water the way it's written right now. What percentage of that, if I'm pumping surface water, what percentage of that goes in my bucket?
If you're putting surface water in the ground,
yes.
In the wintertime, you're getting 90%. So if you put 100 acre feet, you're getting 90 acre feet in your bucket.
So that like until like March?
April.
Till April. Okay.
After April, it switches to 75%.
Okay. So like May, June, July until the water run finishes.
Yes.
That's $2,700 and I get the credit.
So what happens is what we do is we take let's just say the month of January, the ET coming off.
Clarify that, please.
The what?
Can you clarify that percentage you were saying?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do is let's just say it's January, right? And you have a field out there, and the ET signature off of that field is, let's just say it's actually 0, right? Because it's cold and there's nothing happening out there. Although there's always a little bit of
let's just say it's open ground.
Yeah. There's always a little bit of ET. What we do is we say, and then you take surface water, you put some water out on that field, and you put 100 acre feet out on that field. 90 acre feet goes into your credit bucket.
Okay.
Right. Let's just say we go to the summertime, right? In the peak of summertime, let's say June, right? And your ET off of that field is 6 inches per acre, right? For that, I'm making up numbers, right? Sure. And you apply an extra acre foot of water, right? So 6 inches comes off the acre foot. So 6 inches went into the ground, but you're only going to get credit for 75% of that 6 inches.
I understand.
And I got yelled at quite a bit. I'm comfortable with it. Well, you're taking it away from me. That water goes into your 10 inches of. It actually goes back to you.
Into a different bucket.
It just goes into a different bucket.
Community bucket.
Yeah, and if you don't take it there and we'll just take it comes off the other side. It's a mass balance equation.
This is for the predetermined surface water allocation we're talking about, right? We're not talking about overflow or anything like that.
Not flood water.
Right.
Yeah.
This is. This year you try to take them from that.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So at a 3 acre feet, if it was in June, then you're probably at $75 or something like that. So I understand.
No, That was surface water.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, it comes onto your field. Yep. And we burn the ET off. That's gone. I used it, evaporated it. And there's return flow going back down in the ground.
Sure.
You're gonna get 75% credit for that in the summer and 90 in the winter.
I understand.
How about, do you not count pre-irrigation in the winter?
That all goes into your account. Groundwater pre-irrigation?
Well, no, if you're using surface water to pre-irrigate, you're saying you get 90%. But say a portion of that was used for pre-irrigation of the spring crop.
Correct. It's such a small, the numbers are so hard to calculate. It's so difficult. And then not only that, when we started looking at it, when you're using groundwater to pre-irrigate, oh man, it gets really complicated.
Yeah.
But the ET signature will pick up on some of that pre-irrigation. We see it in the ET number. Once you bring it up out of the ground, it sees it on the surface, and you're going to see a little bit higher ET when you pre-irrigate off that field. You'll see it.
And what was the cutoff after April?
I think it's April. I remember. I think it's a tax day or something. We have the dates. James Fisher, our guy, has the dates. But every year we're gonna keep putting those notices out, and it'll have those dates in there.
Back to Kendriel.
Yep, Kendriel. We better keep on trucking.
Thanks. So getting into other comments that were received, folks noted that there was a really positive aspect of trade restrictions that were included in the structure of the market, but also factored into the guardrail surrounding the market. So particularly those minimum thresholds that were mentioned earlier. Also the inclusion of vulnerable users and users of groundwater in the planning process, and also in the management, and as mentioned in those guardrails going forward through the future of the market. Some areas of improvement that were noted within either the strategy document itself or the market included greater clarity around technical concepts and decision making. So exactly how the market is going to work with regard to allocations and the water accounting framework, how decisions were going to be made on a case-by-case basis, and how the market was going to interact with the other GSAs. Wanting to have clearer definitions on groundwater specific terminology, especially those ones that aren't inherently known. Sigma, GSA, GSP, those are very common acronyms. But there are a bunch of others, and they're very specific to this topic area that weren't defined previously that we added some clarity around. Getting into some more substantive comments, folks wanted to make sure that any technology that was used as part of the market was as accessible and transparent for all involved. So that means making sure the user interface was very friendly and easy to use, that all of the data was easily accessible to people participating in the market, and that it was easily understandable how that was translating as far as the exchange software. This is also something that we saw mirrored in comments that we received from in-person attendees at the public workshops that occurred over the summer as part of the pilot water market. Folks also wanted to know that any monitoring or reporting that was occurring as part of the water marketing strategy was using data that was as up-to-date as possible. And that's something that we've talked about in previous strategy committee meetings as well. Some other comments that we received were wanting to make sure that the water marketing strategy had approaches that prioritized vulnerable uses and users of groundwater on a go-forward basis, and not just for the pilot, making sure that as we continue to figure out how this is going to work and test how this is going to function, not only in Mid-kaweah, but in other GSAs, making sure that we prioritize vulnerable uses and users at every step along the way. Making sure that we are holding space for an organizing body that had a diverse interest group. So making sure, very similar to the committee that we've assembled here for development of the market, making sure that we have all interest groups represented, and that those folks are able to stay up to date on all market activities and reconvene on a pretty regular basis to help keep the ship steering straight. Folks also commented that they wanted the market to be implemented in pretty slow, sort of phased approaches, making sure that all of the kinks were worked out every step of the way and that there was the utmost opportunity to course correct as needed, kind of leaning on that flexibility principle within the guiding principles that we developed. So that means making sure that this is implemented at the GSA level rather at a sub-basin wide level, and that it's integrated as much as possible into any existing projects or management actions like ones you may have seen in the GSA, and that overall this process is integrated in a very holistic approach. And then finally, including strategies for effective stakeholder outreach, not only so that folks can be aware of the market, but that so they can be included in the planning and implementation of it, making sure that, again, those guiding principles are implemented to the fullest extent and that everybody's involved in these conversations and has an opportunity to contribute in a very collaborative fashion to its implementation going forward. So what are we doing with all of those comments? As you saw, we put everything together in a comment log. We are in the process of finalizing our responses to comments and doing internal reviews before we pass things off to wrap up and get posted to the TID/MKGSC's website. That document will also go out via the MKGSA listserv. For anybody who's not a part of that, feel free to pass your email address along to Diana to be added to it, or if you're online, feel free to drop it in the chat and we'll take that and add you to the list as well. We will include, as mentioned, copies of the comment letters that we received, as well as responses to those comment letters, whether there was a direct edit to the document or it's being included in the full digestion of this entire process and helping to guide the project coordination team as we move into, or as MKGSA moves into the adoption phase and supports GKGSA and EKGSA as they continue to digest and position themselves for this as well. As mentioned, this is going to be serving as sort of a living document. Very similar to the GSP, this isn't going to be very static. It's going to get tweaked around the edges as need be. It's going to be course corrected depending on a case-by-case basis. This document is serving as an instruction manual that we're hoping continues to evolve and grow as we continue to evolve and grow, and reflects not only current groundwater conditions, but our understanding of those conditions, and is done so in as collaborative a manner as possible. And how we do that is by making sure that you stay involved, whether that means the committee makes a resurgence after the instruction manual is adopted and a new iteration of this group comes forth, whether that means you continue to just pop into these meetings to provide feedback and ask questions. Keeping it living is going to require your participation. So any and all time and guidance and wisdom that you can pass along to us will only serve to make this better. So
there's a provision in the water marketing strategy that there is an oversight committee that informs the, say we get into the first year, we're going to learn stuff and we're going to need to make revisions. So there's a committee that's going to oversee it. The committees that we currently have, we're going to probably ask them to stay on with us a little bit longer as we move through this. So there'll be continued oversight. So again, I don't envision this thing as, hey, Mid-kaweah staff go take off and get running. This is something for folks to be, it's really for everybody to be involved.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron, which is a great segue into our last agenda item. We were hoping that today could be a little bit more of a discussion. We're hoping to get some reflections from committee members, but also folks who are not a part of the committee, but have been a part of the process and have provided feedback, submitted comments, and overall just been contributors to the work product that we've put together. So we would really like to know what this experience has been like for you. Water markets are not heavily utilized in California. So this is a little bit of a new frontier, not only for the region, but for the state. So we'd like to know what this has been like, what were your expectations coming into this, and overall what your hopes are for the market and where you see this going. I we'll give about 5 seconds to see if anybody wants to go first, and then I will be the teacher and I will start calling on folks. 3, 2, 1. All right. How about Sonia from Self Help Enterprises? Do you want to go first and just let us know what your thoughts are?
Sure, I can go first. Self Help Enterprises works with disadvantaged communities. So we represented, the disadvantaged community voice, and overall this process, I think, was really collaborative. I think it speaks to why the Kaweah Subbasin is also not going to be having a probationary hearing here. We really do think the Kaweah has done a lot to advance the work of Sigma and their plans, and this being one aspect of it. In general, I think the guiding principles and having those laid out at the very beginning really did provide a foundation for developing this water market. The other thing that I think was really important and we were happy to see was that it started as a pilot and a small water market, and then it will continue that way and then be expanded. So it has the opportunity to work out the kinks at a local small level before continuing to expand. So that was really great. And the last thing is the protection for disadvantaged communities. We were happy to see the protections included in the water market strategy. And yeah, look forward to seeing how this evolves. Yeah, it was a really great process, and I hope that this collaboration continues and is implemented in other aspects of Sigma.
Where the teacher shall call upon you. Uh-oh, you're up, Andrew. Pick your next student. Oh, you're on mute, Andrew.
I know Leadership Council was not a part of the committee in official capacity, but you were very large contributors to, I think, the success of steering this document and this market in the right direction. I think, Natalie, you're the only person here from Leadership Council this evening. Do you have any words of wisdom or reflections that you'd like to share?
Thank you. I don't know if there are words of wisdom. Thank you all for the work that you've put on this. We submitted joint comments with Clean Water Action and CWC, and I think generally, and I think this will just be like a sentiment moving forward, like across markets is, I think just given lessons from other areas, we continue to have reservations. However, we do think this committee has actively addressed a lot of those reservations that we have. We truly hope that there's no unintended consequence in the market. I think y'all have set up some really good safeguards. So definitely, we're hoping that it continues, to operate in a way that doesn't cause any potential harms. Also, the level of transparency and engagement, I think, has also been really great, and at least eases some concerns around how, the market could go bad. But again, hopefully not going to be the case because of the strong, not just the market, but really the fact that you paired this with a strong GSP, I think is one of the big important pieces. I think when it comes to market, some of our reservations come from that, like not having a strong GSP. So I think that also helps ease some of the concerns that we had flagged in our letter. But then also really great to hear that it's a living document and that can always be adjusted as you're moving through the market. So just overall wanted to thank all the folks here for all your hard work on really being thoughtful through how you shape this market. I think if folks in the San Joaquin Valley decide to engage on anything on like a market, I think it'd be great for them to look at the the guiding principles that y'all had developed. And congrats again on not having a probationary hearing. Again, really to echo Sonia's comments, y'all did really fantastic work in getting that plan to a place where I am very happy to be able to tell other GSAs, please go look at what they're doing.
So,
Thank you.
I'm gonna pick one. Craig, you were awfully quiet today. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. I think the outcome was good, especially obviously it's a lot easier, I think, the way the mid set up for what this will do right now. I think the East and the Greater should be able to make this work for them, and it'll be a good companion to the paper transfers and some of that that'll probably still be needed, but it'll be a spot for those that really just want an easier way to maybe move something around to be able to do that. I think as kinks get worked out and allocations get reduced, and there's just not as much water floating around out there anyway to do something with. I think some of the concerns from those thinking it would get all gobbled up by someone or huge amounts of water are going to move around. I don't see that long term as an issue because there's just not going to be as much available supply anyway. I think there'll be enough to, like you had mentioned earlier, to get someone their last foot of water or something like that out on a crop, but it's not going to be something that's going to be able to supply your entire supply. There's just not that much water to spread around. So, and Stantec, I'd like to thank their effort, Aaron, obviously, for you guys putting in the grant to where at least some of the cost of this has been covered. So that's basically it. Thanks.
Thanks, Craig. I know from the committee we also have online Joe Cardoza. Joe, were you able to work out your audio? Do you have anything you'd like to share?
I don't know. Do you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Oh, okay. I guess I have to say, this is, I think, probably one of the things that we had to do in order to, at least in the interim, in order to make this work out with all the reductions in the water and so on. It will help to buy us some time. Again, as I reiterated right from the start, and especially when I got on the GSA, to begin with, my concern was the effects it was going to have on the community as a whole, not just the farmers, but everybody else that's in that 6 multiplier that comes out of ag. And so, in our area here, Tulare County, $8 billion, and you put a 6 multiplier, and then you take 25% of it out for water, it's going to have a devastating effect on our economy. And so I think this will help us to alleviate that in some regards. At least we can move some water around. Some people will be able to continue to at least be somewhat, active and continuing in farming and so on. For those that can't, at least they have a way to at least get some sort of revenue to help offset their losses otherwise. So it's been an experience. I have to say that everybody seemed very professional and so on. I know that they were talking about that first meeting, and Sophie and I were sitting near each other, and we were kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum and so on. But I think we've come together and gotten to where we can work together and so on. And I think she understands that I'm not the biggest a-hole as she thought I was initially. So yeah, she can block the screen. Anyway, so I want to thank everybody. I want to thank you, Aaron, for keeping us all under wraps and so on. So anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. I know we're coming up on time and folks may have a hard stop at 7. So for anyone that does, please feel free to drop off or head home or to your other commitments. But before we go, I'm hoping to get some feedback from Sophie and then from our fearless leaders.
Thank you very much. I sort of gave you my synopsis. I think that working with the marketing committee and the expertise that came with it has really helped me a lot. I am involved with avocados and lemons and have been on a family farm family farms and outside director for 30 years. So I'm pretty involved with the Ventura area. And I was really concerned in the beginning because there was so much hostility expressed and unexpressed between the different users. And Joe made me laugh because I would, by no stretch of the imagination, think that we could not be friends and laugh together and be together as we've been through so many GSA meetings. And I certainly have respect for him. And I think that that's one of the most important things is in these really hard times, the problem is not going to go away. It's not as if we can just say this is, in my opinion, going to fix itself. And so remembering to understand where other people are coming from and be able to use a marketing strategy so that we can make it better for everybody is one of the alternatives. And I also want to do a call out to Aaron Fukuda, who not only has run an amazing GSA, but been very, very, very instrumental in the marketing and is one of those people that sees all sides of the coin and works really hard to find the middle ground. And I think that's the genuine feeling of the marketing committee of where do we find common ground. And I'm glad to see that. And I enjoyed the process and the people and the thoughts a lot.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Matthew and Aaron, in whichever order you'd like to go, you are not escaping this. You two need to share your reflections.
There you go. Like Sophie said, I try and find the middle ground and because I know we got a lot at risk here in our community. I look around and I go, there's a lot of family farms that are propping up this community, and then there's a lot of people in the community that are relying on this to succeed. So I know there's a lot at risk. Most people don't know this, adamantly opposed to water markets when I got into SIGMA. They were the worst idea that anybody could add for the particular reason of when you add money and water together, the big boys are really the ones that, right? Sorry, but if your family is farming, you're on the tractor, you're doing the planting, you're not running a water market, right? So you're going to be at a disadvantage when you have a venture capitalist come in. They've got college kids crunching numbers, telling them what the algorithm is and when to buy, when to sell, and I just thought that was really bad, and I was opposed to it. I think as I got to meet people, Matthew was the primary person in understanding that there are different ways to look at markets. I am now a 150% convert. Like, we can solve a tremendous amount of issues with the water market and make it easy, make it workable, make it protective, make it financially something for folks. Not just water, but it can be financial, but to the small grower, not to the venture capitalists. Like I said, if you need a transmission, put a couple acre feet on the market, and now you don't have to go to the bank, which is they're running you through the ringer right now at 4%, 7%, whatever they're charging you. If you have a little bit of buffer in your water account, maybe you could solve that problem. And then to the committee, yeah, this was a once in a lifetime experience to be a part of a group of people that I didn't think we could get there when we first had our first couple of meetings. I thought, oh no, there's no way this is gonna fly, right? Too many varying viewpoints. And I give Candriel and Matthew credit to pull and the Stantec team to just pull everybody together, have these meetings, creative ways to look at trying to get everybody to consensus, like locking them in a shop until they agreed, and you're not going to leave until we get guiding principles. And we walked out of there with guiding principles. And there was chocolate too. There was chocolate. There's chocolate here too. and without those guiding principles, those are Sonia and everybody's right. Those guiding principles, you can apply those to anything in your life practically. Things start smoothing out real quick. So I'm just happy to be here. Next step is to get this thing rolled out to the growers and then get you guys starting to trade. Get on the phone, trade a little bit, play around with a little bit, and use it, right? don't be afraid of it. Give it a shot. So I want to thank. I got to thank the Stantec team, Candriel, the long hours of working on this doc, Matthew, the traveling up and down the state to get over here for all of our meetings, and then this guy is a spokesman for us out in the ether here and what we're doing. So he's talking with the state and others and the things that we're doing. I've got a wonderful staff. They're not here right now. They had some family commitments, and I said I'd cover it. But Diana and James are, and you guys interface with them, with your accounts and stuff. We can't. Those two individuals are the GSA. I'm not. I'm just the guy that makes sure they get their paycheck. So, but those two are committed to this program just as much as I am. So, thank you to everybody. Matthew, you're up. You're the guy.
So my final comments are: this was a tremendous privilege. I just because I've done this in other areas, I recognize this is really hard work, but it sounds like everyone that's spoken today agrees. This is really hard work, but it's hard work that's really worth doing, and it's just a tremendous privilege. There's, in terms of the work that I get to do, there's nothing I would rather be doing than be stuck in the shop working on these issues. Yeah, getting people together and finding out what we can agree on. To me, that's the most rewarding work you could possibly do. And I also just think it's a really unique portrait of the character of this community. So I'm from a farming family. My grandfather was a soybean farmer. I married into a cattle ranching family, and I now live on the coast and sometimes just feel like alien, like I landed in another world. So it's just awesome to sort of get this portrait of this community, and to have been a part of it is a real privilege. So it's sort of feels like a coming home a little bit for me. So thanks for including me in this awesome process.
And then Matthew's probably not going anywhere because he will be probably our market administrator. We need an administrator to oversee things, so we're working on an agreement and a contract right now. Somebody's got to oversee it. You do have to have somebody watching the knobs and the dials and the transactions.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Well, thank you, folks. I appreciate time.
Well, thank you.
Merry Christmas
and grab your chocolate.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays,
Merry,
everyone.
Merry Christmas.
No, my pleasure.
Bye.
Yeah.